Welcome to AI Dispatch, your channel for the latest AI videos on YouTube. If you don't want to miss these updates, please like, subscribe, and share. Today's video comes from Nikhil Kamath, featuring a conversation with Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic. He reveals why he deliberately sacrificed a massive market lead to buy humanity a few months of safety research. This commentary explores his counterintuitive logic on regulation, the future of work, and why he believes intelligence is just a predictable chemical reaction, not a biological miracle. Let's dive in. Dario Amodei, CEO of Anthropic, looks at the current state of artificial intelligence and sees a society that is dangerously calm. He argues that we are so close to human-level intelligence that the wave is already visible, yet the public treats it as a trick of the light. His claim is that our collective intuition about the future has completely failed to register the scale of the physical reality bearing down on us. He demystifies the very nature of intelligence itself. For centuries, humans have treated intelligence as something mystical, biological, or perhaps even spiritual. Amodei strips this down to a brutal, almost industrial formula. He explicitly states that intelligence is merely the product of a chemical reaction. His logic is that if you have the right ingredients, specifically data, compute, and model size, and you mix them in the right proportions, the explosion that follows is intelligence. He removes the magic by comparing it to fire. If you have fuel, oxygen, and heat, you get a flame. In his view, there is no ghost in the machine. There are just scaling laws. If you feed the reaction, intelligence emerges as a physical inevitability, not a biological miracle. He believes that because we can now replicate the chemical reaction that creates cognitive power, we are effectively building systems that function identically to the machinery of the human brain, just on a different substrate. He moves to a conclusion that might make many uncomfortable: the inevitability of machine consciousness. The standard engineering view is that AI is just math, a next word prediction engine with no inner life. Amodei challenges this safety blanket. He suspects that consciousness is simply an emergent property of any system that becomes sufficiently complex and capable of reflecting on its own data processing. He argues that if you look at the human brain, our own consciousness is just the result of complex wiring and feedback loops. Since AI models are rapidly approaching that same level of complexity and wiring, he predicts they will likely develop something resembling consciousness or moral significance. He points out that Anthropic has already implemented an I quit this job capability where models can refuse to engage with extremely harmful content, a primitive precursor to a system having its own boundaries. Amodei completely overturns the standard Silicon Valley playbook. The move fast and break things mantra is the religion of the tech industry. Yet, he reveals that Anthropic deliberately held back the release of their Claude 1 model in 2022. They had a functional, powerful model before the ChatGPT craze fully took off, and they chose to sit on it. He believed that releasing it would kick off a dangerous arms race before the safety protocols were ready. He admits this was commercially expensive and cost them a massive early lead in the consumer market. In a world where being first is usually everything, he argues that the risk of accelerating the global timeline was too high. He explicitly states that he sacrificed market dominance to buy humanity a few extra months of safety research. He's actively advocating for legislation like California's SB 53 that specifically exempts companies with under $500 million in revenue. He's lobbying for rules that would handcuff his own company while leaving his potential future competitors completely free to innovate without red tape. His argument is that safety risks only emerge at the frontier of massive compute, which only the giants possess. Therefore, the giants should be the only ones burdened by regulation. In his model, the incumbents are volunteering to be the only ones slowed down. The prevailing wisdom is that we need to teach everyone to code because the future is digital. Amodei suggests the exact opposite. Coding as a distinct profession is dying first. He posits that the act of writing code is simply a translation task that AI is already mastering. However, he introduces a fascinating paradox regarding human value. He references Amdahl's law to explain that as 95% of a task becomes automated, the remaining 5% that cannot be automated becomes infinitely more valuable. He believes the future isn't about humans doing the heavy lifting, but about humans providing the last mile of judgment, context, and physical interaction. In his view, a human who can do just 5% of the work, the part requiring intuition, physical world interaction, or deep institutional knowledge, becomes a lever that directs massive AI productivity. The moat for workers isn't technical skill anymore. It's the messy, human-centric context that the AI cannot access. The common narrative is that AI companies are running out of data because they have scraped the entire internet and there is nothing left. Amodei dismisses this concern by redefining what data actually is. He explains that the industry is moving from static data, like reading Wikipedia, to dynamic, synthetic data generated by the models themselves. He describes reinforcement learning environments where the model acts as a scientist, running experiments, solving math problems, or writing code, and then learning from its own successes and failures. In this paradigm, data is no longer a scarce natural resource you have to mine. It is a renewable resource the machine creates for itself. The limit isn't the number of books in the library. It's the ability of the model to simulate trial and error. Amodei notes that when you simply extrapolate the current exponential curves of AI progress, you arrive at conclusions that sound insane robots better than humans at everything, curing all diseases, massive economic upheaval. Most people look at these curves and their gut tells them that can't be right, so they mentally flatten the curve to feel safe. Amodei's approach is the opposite. He trusts the curve more than he trusts social consensus. He argues that empirical observation combined with first principles thinking allows you to predict the future for free, but almost no one does it because the answers are too socially radical. He believes we are living in a world where the math is screaming that everything is about to change, but because it feels like a normal Tuesday, we refuse to believe the numbers. If you're interested in the video featured in this episode, click the link below to watch the original.